أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. I seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan, the wretched one. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the most merciful. يا أيها النبي اتق الله ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين إن الله كان عليما حكيما. O Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, fear Allah and do not follow the kafirin and the munafiqeen. Undoubtedly, Allah is ever all-knowing, the wise. وَاتَّبِعْ مَا يُوحَى إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. And follow that which has been revealed to you from your Rabb. Surely Allah is ever informed about whatever you do. وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكِيلًا. Rely upon Allah. Allah is sufficient as a helper, guardian, wakil. مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not placed two hearts within any man's chest. وَمَا جَعَلَ أَزْوَاجَكُمُ اللَّائِي تُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْهُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ. Nor has He made your wives with whom you practice your zihar, your mothers. وَمَا جَعَلَ أَدْعِيَاءَكُمْ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. Also, Allah has not made your adopted sons your own sons. ذَلِكُمْ قَوْلُكُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ. These are merely statements from your lips. وَاللَّهُ يَقُولُ الْحَقَّ وَهُوَ يَهْدِي السَّبِيلَ. And Allah speaks the truth, and only He guides to the straight path. أُدْعُوهُمْ لِآبَائِهِمْ هُوَ أَقْسَطُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Relate them to their fathers. This is more just in the sight of your Rabb. فَإِن لَمْ تَعْلَمُوا آبَاءَهُمْ فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ وَمَوَالِيكُمْ. And if you do not know who their fathers are, then they are your brothers in religion and they are your friends. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِي مَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. There shall be no blame, reproach upon you with regards to any mistakes you make. However, only for what your heart purposely intend will there be blame. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. And Allah is ever the most forgiving, the most merciful. These are the opening 5 verses of Surah al-Ahzab. Alhamdulillah, in the last lesson we covered the first 3 ayat. 2 things we need to mention over here. Number 1, the name of this surah is Surah al-Ahzab. And Ahzab is plural of Hizb. And Hizb means group, party. So al-Ahzab means groups, parties. Our respected Dr. Mazhar Sahib mentions that over here, this Surah al-Ahzab should be translated as Surah of the Confederates. Because Confederates means a few armies who join together, combine and attack one group or one country, one area. And this surah was revealed with regards to al-Ahzab. In the year 5 after Hijrah, Quraysh and Ghatfan and many other Qabail and tribes got together and proceeded towards Medina Munawwara in order to annihilate Medina Munawwara. At that time, there were a huge army of 10,000 soldiers. And Arabs had never seen such a huge army, because they used to come in small batches, groups. Like in Badr there was only 1,000, and in Uhud there were only 3,000, and the Muslims in Badr were 313, and in Uhud there were 700. So 10,000 used to be classed as a huge army. And Quraysh were not 10,000 in numbers, they were few, but they went around, and this shararat was from the Yahud. The Yahud of Banu Nadir, who were extradited from Medina Munawwara and went to live in Khaybar, 70 miles from Medina Munawwara. Their leaders went around talking to each group and making allies and getting them together, instigating them, telling them to come and crush Medina Munawwara. So the Yahud of Banu Nadir were also in there, Yahud of Banu Qaynuqa and Ghatfan and Quraysh and other Qabail. They all got together and came to attack Medina Munawwara, wipe them out from the face of this earth. And the story will come. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered the Sahaba, made mashwara. Salman Farsi gave the mashwara of digging trenches, and the trenches were dug. And this is how the Medina Munawwara and the city was protected, because they could not make an outright attack, and they had to wait and lie in wait and try and do something. They had to wait there for 3 weeks, nearly 21 days. And then they couldn't take it any longer. They ran out of ration, they ran out of water, and then they had to retreat. And there was some confusion and infighting among themselves. And this way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repelled the allies, and they went back to their homes, to their own qabail and tribes. So they were unsuccessful in their aims of finishing off the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba ridwanullahi ajma'in. So this is why this surah is named Surah al-Ahzab, because this incident is mentioned in 2 rukus, from the second and up to third ruku. So first 2 rukus are regarding this incident. Second thing we need to mention over here is that some athar over here say that Surah al-Ahzab was a very long surah, and parts of it was abrogated. Ubay ibn Ka'b radiyallahu anhu says in one riwayat that Surah Ahzab, when it was revealed, was initially like the size of Surah Al-Baqarah, which is nearly 2.5 siparas, juz. But now there's only just over half juz left, nearly 3/4 juz if you want to say. So the rest was abrogated, the ayat, the masail. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abrogated them. One of the verses that was abrogated in there was the verse regarding rajm, stoning to death. There was an ayat, الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنيا فرجموهما نكالا من الله والله عزيز حكيم. An elderly man with an elderly lady committing lewdness, stone them to death. This will be a lesson from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them and for others. And Allah is Aziz and Hakim, mighty, powerful and wise. This ayat was revealed, it remained for some time, but it was among the ayat which were mansukh, abrogated. The verses and the tilawat was mansukh, but the hukm and the ruling is baqi, and it remains. The reason for that is the ahadith explain that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself performed rajm on Ma'iz ibn Malik al-Aslami and the Ghamidiyya. And during the time of Sayyiduna Umar radiyallahu anhu, Sayyiduna Umar was very sahibi firasat, very far-sighted person. So Sayyiduna Umar radiyallahu anhu once said on the mimbar, Ayyuhan nas, we used to recite this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna Allah ta'ala anzala al-Qur'an ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa kana fima anzala alayhi ayat al-rajm. الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنيا فرجموهما نكالا من الله والله عزيز حكيم. فأخشى إن طال بالناس زمان أن يقول قائل ما نجد الرجم في كتاب الله وإن الرجم في كتاب الله حق على من زنى وأحصن. And رجم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ورجمنا بعده. That, O people, Allah has sent down the Quran, and in the Quran Allah sent this verse regarding rajm as well, and it was abrogated, the tilawat. However, I am scared that time will pass on and someone will come and say there is no ayat for stoning in the Quran, so stoning is not a Islamic hukum. So because of that, I am telling you that remember, whoever commits zina and is married, is elderly, he is married, and he is brought to me, then he will be stoned to death. And he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam performed rajm and we did rajm after him, and rajm is haqq. So don't let any person come and deceive you and mislead you by saying it's not in the Quran. Subhanallah, Sayyiduna Umar radiyallahu anhu, so far-sighted person. Once I saw a documentary in Channel 4. Some prostitutes from our home country were brought on that documentary, and they were talking about, rajm, and they said, Quran mein to kahin rajm nahi hai, Quran mein to nahi hai rajm. No, Quran mein there is no rajam in the Quran, so this is only mullah people's and Maulvi's decision, so it's not right. Then I thought about Sayyidina Umar, Allahu Akbar. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, may Allah shower his mercy and rahmah upon his grave. He was seeing too far ahead, and he has said that people will come and they will say these things. But it's not only Quran you practice upon, you practice upon the hadith, and you practice upon the Sahaba's asar and their amal as well. This is why he said, وَرَجَمْنَا بَعْدَهُ. That Rasulullah performed rajam and we did rajam after him. And rajam is barhaq. So nobody can deny the ayat of rajam. So this is what Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu explained with regards to rajam. However, we have to remember that these hudud and masail are for where the Islamic rule is established and where the case is brought before a Muslim judge and he investigates the case according to the Islamic rulings, and there are 4 witnesses for the act who see the actual act of one private part entering the other private part. This is, they have to see it clearly. They can't say I saw them hugging or kissing. This is not enough to prove zina. They will have to say clearly that we saw the actual act. Then and there should be not one witness, 4 people should see it. And they should say that bear witness and testify under oath and qasam that they saw this act. Then zina can be proven. Or second way of proving it is iqrar, i'tiraf. If they admit that yes, I did this, like Ma'iz al-Aslamiyya admitted and Ghamidiyya admitted, and they wanted the punishment of Allah to be carried out upon them. They wanted them to clean themselves, and they said, we want to, we've made a mistake, we are filthy, dirty, we want to clean ourselves. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, well, if you are ready to take the punishment, then this is Allah's hukum and ruling. So it has to be an Islamic court, Muslim qazi, and proper judiciary system, and all the gawahs are established. During the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, there was a case in which there was an accusation of zina upon someone, and 4 witnesses were brought. And Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu was extremely disturbed with the case. And he didn't want that rajm to be done because that person himself was a good person. Maybe he might have made mistake or something must have gone wrong or something. So the witnesses were coming, and one of them said, yes, I saw him performing this act. Second one said it. Third one said it. Fourth one said, I stood up and went to the window and I saw some scene, but I didn't see the proper act taking place. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu said, sorry, the 4th witness has declined to testify seeing the actual act. So the witness testimony is not complete, and the saza and the punishment cannot be carried out. Rather, these 3 men who claimed that he performed the act were unable to give the proper testimony. They will be flogged 80 times for haddi qazaf. And the punishment of 80 lashes was carried out upon them. If you did not have the proper proof, then why did you bring this case forward? So it's the proving zina is very delicate matter and very strict rules regarding it. So if it is proven through 4 reliable, trustworthy witnesses, then the punishment can be carried out, and that will be by the judge and the proper judiciary system. Otherwise, in foreign countries where there is no Islamic rule, hudud cannot be carried out over there. Any had of zina or had saraqa or theft, burglary or any other qatl or murder, we have to follow the law of the land. Whatever the law says, we go according to that. We cannot carry out these punishment over here. This is just explanation of Quranic ayat, tafseer. That is why we have to explain what the Quran is saying with regards to this. So, this ayat was in this surah of Surah al-Ahzab. However, it was abrogated, the tilawat and the words were abrogated, but the hukm and the ruling is left behind, and we have to believe in that. These are 2 things which I needed to clarify before moving on. The name of Surah Al-Ahzab and also the verse which was abrogated. Some people say, the Shias, they claim that Umar radiallahu anhu changed the Quran. He wiped out many verses And Abu Bakr and Umar, Surah Ahzab was so long, but Abu Bakr and Umar, they omitted many ayat and verses, and there was names of Ahlul Bayt in there, Fatima, Ali, Hassan, Hussein, and they omitted all the names. This is all bogus. There was no names of Hassan, Hussein, Ali, Fatima in the Quran, and Abu Bakr Umar did not wipe anything out. This is not tahrif. There is a difference between tahrif and naskh. Tahrif means alteration, interpolation, adulteration, and naskh means abrogation, cancelling. So these verses were abrogated, cancelled during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And tahrif means changing what Quran had said. So nobody changed a single word of the Quran. Quran is preserved in its original manner. There were some verses which were revealed, but Rasulullah himself said that we don't need to recite these verses now. These are abrogated. They were there for some hikmat, some wisdom. Now that hikmat, wisdom has been fulfilled, they are no longer needed, so they are cancelled. Rasulullah himself cancelled them. So that is why we understand the difference between tahrif and between naskh. So this is with regards to the naskh part, which came into my mind. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said regarding Ma'iz ibn Malik al-Aslami, I can see him in Jannah. He's swimming in the rivers of Jannah. He was stoned, but he was clean-hearted. He made a mistake, genuine mistake. And Rasulullah didn't want to, inflict the punishment upon him. Rasulullah turned him away, go away from here. And again, and again, and again. 4 times he turned him away. When he did iqrar and admitted 4 times, it is then that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam inquired from him, okay, now you've done 4 iqrars and 4 admissions. Come here, tell me. Do you know what is zina? And he said, yes, I know what is zina. A person performing the haram act with a woman which is halal for him with his wife. And he said that, you might have just hugged her, you might have just kissed her, you might have just lied down with her. And he said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I performed the proper act of zina. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, check him out. Has he drunk something? Is he intoxicated? And one Sahabi got up and smelled his mouth, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, no, there is no smell of any intoxication coming out from his mouth. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, is he majnoon, insane? And they said, no, Ya Rasulullah, he's not insane. He's proper, in right frame of mind. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, then you have admitted it. And Rasulullah tried to avert the punishment from him. But then when he himself was so strong, I want that punishment on me. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take him away. And he was stoned. Ghamidiyah औरत का कबीले गामिद की थी वो. दूसरे, she used to live in another area. She came from there. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, I am Muslim and I was married and I made this mistake. And I want the punishment carried down on me. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned his face away. Go away from here. And she said, are you trying to turn me away like you turned Ma'iz ibn Malik al-Aslami away? So I have performed this act. My mistake, I regret it and I am remorseful. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and she said, Rasulullah, I am hamila from zina. I have become pregnant because of zina. And here, this baby in my stomach. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, then, we can't stone you while you are, pregnant. Go until you deliver the baby, then we'll see. She delivers the baby and she comes with the baby. Ya Rasulullah, I have delivered the baby. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, well, we can't leave the baby without someone suckling her. So go and until the baby becomes independent, then we'll see. So who's going to look after her? One Sahabi said, I'll look after her, Ya Rasulullah. He took her to his house with his family and she stayed until the baby started, eating roti and stopped the milk. This takes place about a year or so, year and a half. So after that she came back with the baby and the piece of bread in the baby's hand, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, it stopped taking milk now, it's eating by itself. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, who's going to look after the baby? One Sahabi said, I'll foster the baby, Ya Rasulullah. Rasulullah gave the baby to that Sahabi and the lady was taken, and a ditch was dug for her and she was covered, and then the had was carried out on her. And at that moment, someone said, "Look at her, and look at her, the way she was stoned to death." And they made some bad remarks about her. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No. She did such a strong tawbah that if this single woman's repentance was distributed on the whole city of Medina and every living person in Medina, then that tawbah would be enough for the whole Medina Munawwara." That's how strong her tawbah was. So, you know, these days people want to sin and sin and sin, and these sins are the ones which invite Allah's anger and wrath. Why does these zilzalas, just we had this zilzala some time ago, somewhere tsunami, Kutch Bhuj, Nepal, landslides, Chile, Italy, and you know, forest fires, and we had some earthquake over here as well on a small Richter scale. The chandeliers in Darul were shaking at night. Students were awake about 11, 12 o'clock and they were studying for the exams. It was exams time, Salana exam. And there was this small minor earthquake in somewhere in Cumbria. But the whole England, UK was shaking. Earthquake epicenter was in Cumbria, which is near Scotland, and the chandeliers in Darul's building were shaking. So the students were thinking, why is the chandelier shaking? What's up with that? Because you know when the chandelier is shaking, you see the light moving. So they are looking into the kitab and suddenly the light's moving. So why is this moving? So it kept moving for a bit and then it stopped. Then we heard the news that last night at so and so time, 12:30, 1 o'clock, there was a minor earthquake. So why do these halat come? And you know, Maulana Tariq Jamil Sahab mentions it very briefly, very beautifully, when he said that some people say that Allah is Rahman and Rahim or Rahmur Rahimeen. So why do these things happen? And he explains, of course Allah is Rahman and Rahim, but you not read the 99 names of Allah? At the same time, Allah is Aziz and Jabbar and Muntaqim, and He is mighty, Qahhar and Jabbar as well. He is the Lord of retribution. He is powerful. He is the compeller. He is the subduer. He is the one who holds to account as well. So, of course, Allah is Ar-Rahmur Rahimeen, but there is a limit to everything. And then he explains, if I am a very nice, soft, gentle-hearted person, you swear at me, you abuse me, you throw some dirt on me, and then you throw banana skin on me, and then you start throwing your dirt in my garden, you are my neighbor, and you throw your, babies in my garden, all your dirt in my garden, then I will tolerate for a while, but one day, I'll also roll up my sleeve. Hey, kya samajh rakha hai? What you think you are? And I've had enough of you. And so similarly, people have dirtied the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with zina, with riba, with zulm, with oppression, with injustice, with lying, with backbiting, with treachery, with theft, with murders, with killing, with bombs, with all these filths and sins. So how long is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to tolerate? Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows His anger and wrath. So this is due to our own doings. Allah is same Arhamur Rahimeen. But when the sins exceed the limits, that is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a wake-up call. An alarm bell rings. So these are alarm bells which are ringing, and this is a slight taste of what's going to happen on the day of Qiyamah, when the whole earth will be shaken and the whole universe will be torn apart. And if you see the videos of these earthquakes which are happening, Dr. Sahab, we saw this clip yesterday, and in there, the whole earth is shaking and people's legs are wobbly. They are trying to run, but they are running from one area, swaying from one side to the other side. Because when the earth is shaking, you don't know, you can't control your legs. And people are running from here and there, and they run to one side. There are many cars and minibuses trying to move on, and the earth starts to shake, and they run towards that side, and the building collapses. And there are some people crushed in there, and others are saved. And in other places, when there are birds who are terrified, scared to death, and the birds are flying over here and there berserkly, thousands of birds. So the birds are not going to be hurt by any collapsing buildings, but why are they scared? Because of the noise of the earthquake which is taking place. Even the birds are terrified, scared, stiff to death. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَوْمَ يَسْمَعُونَ الصَّيْحَةَ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ الْخُرُوجِ وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ. And Allah Pak said, فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. And Allah Pak said, Ya ayyuhan nas ittaqu rabbakum inna zalzalat as-sa'ati shay'un azim. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها. The whole world and the whole earth will be shaken. This is only one epicenter. And this was, on a Richter scale of 7.8. And it was 15 kilometers down in the earth. It was down in the earth 15 kilometers. That's where the earth was shaking. And these are the effects up of 15 kilometers up. So when this was down 15 kilometers, but when the shaking will be on the surface of the earth itself, imagine what will happen. وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى يَوْمَ تَرَوْنَهَا تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مُرْضِعَةٍ عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ وَتَضَعُ كُلُّ ذَاتِ حَمْلٍ حَمْلَهَا وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ الشَّدِيدُ. So we have to remember that these are wake-up calls from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. And there are some athar over here as well. Today's khutbah was about that. I'll read the athar from here. فقيه أبو الليث السمرقندي said إن العرش يهتز ويغضب الرب لأربعة أعمال لقتل النفس بغير حق ومدح الفاسق وركوب الأنثى وإتيان الذكور. The earth shakes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's arsh shakes and Rabb gets really angry upon 4 sins. Number 1, murder, unjust murder. Number 2, praise of a fasiq. And fusaq and fujjar and transgressors are praised. And number 3, lesbian act. And number 4, homosexual act. Upon these 4 acts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne shakes and Allah's anger appears. Abdul Rahman ibn Sabit says, إنما يوذن في حلاك القرى إذا استحلوا 4 إذا نقصوا الميزان وبخسوا المكيال وأظهروا الزنا وأكلوا الربا. The destruction of cities takes place when they take halal and lawful 4 things. When they reduce the weighing scale, when they give less in measures, and when they openly commit zina, and when they openly riba becomes widespread. So upon these sins, the Allah's anger comes. May Allah protect us from His wrath and anger. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه وما جعل أزواجكم اللائي تظاهرون منهن أمهاتكم وما جعل أدعياءكم أبناءكم ذلكم قولكم بأفواهكم والله يقول الحق وهو يهدي السبيل. After the opening 3 verses and a little bit of introduction, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to mention some ahkam of muasharat, adab of muasharat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه. Allah has not kept 2 hearts in the breast of a man. وما جعل أزواجكم اللائي تظاهرون منهن أمهاتكم. Nor has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made your mothers from whom you do zihar your real mothers. And وما جعل أدعياءكم أبناءكم. Allah has not made your adopted sons your real sons. ذَلِكُمْ قَوْلُكُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ. These are your sayings with your mouths on lips. And وَاللَّهُ يَقُولُ الْحَقَّ وَهُوَ يَهْدِي السَّبِيلِ. It is Allah who speaks the truth, and it is He who guides He guides to the straight path. 3 instructions given over here. Allah has not kept 2 hearts in the heart of a man, meaning every man has only 1 heart. Therefore, that 1 heart should be given to the creator of that heart. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, law lagao. Make sure your connection with Allah is correct. And you don't waver around thither, here and there. You turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said this, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. This is to instruct Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as well. That, Ya Rasulullah, you should also turn to Allah only. And that's what he used to do. In his final days, he once said, لو كنت متخذا خليلا غير ربي لاتخذت أبا بكر خليلا ولكن أخوة الإسلام. If I was to take someone as my deep friend, then I would have taken Abu Bakr as my deep friend. However, ولكن صاحبكم خليل الله. Your friend, companion is a deep friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khalil is someone whose muhabbat goes into the khilal and the depth of the heart. So in the depth of my heart, there is only muhabbat for one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I can keep that deep and that close and deep friendship with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. That type of khullat, and in which you are yearning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time, you think about Him all the time. This type of khullat is with Allah only and not with anybody else. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself is saying, I have only one heart, and that heart is for Allah only. The Shan-e Nuzul and the cause of revelation for this ayat is Ma'mar ibn Jamil al-Fihri. Jamil ibn Ma'mar al-Fihri was a man from Quraysh. He used to say, I am very intelligent and I am very wise and I have two hearts. So I think twice. I think both ways, and I am more intelligent and aqalmand than Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And people used to say, this man has two hearts, this man has two hearts. However, during the battle of Badr, what happened was, when mushrikeen were defeated and they were running for their lives, he was running with one shoe in his hand and the other one in his foot. So he was running for his life. Abu Sufyan asked him, what's the matter with you? Why you only got one shoe and one in your hand? He said, no, I'm wearing both of them. And Abu Sufyan said, no, you only got one on, the other one's in your hand. And he said, oh, the other one's in my hand. Then he wore it. So people saw this, absurd harakat of his, and they realized that he's not got two hearts. Otherwise, his mind would not be boggled. Like he says, I am very intelligent and very wise. Where did his wisdom and intelligence go then? So this type of claim that someone has two hearts in his chest is wrong. It's qawlukum bi afwahikum, just muh boli baatein hain, pe hain, don't pay any attention to them. At the same time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being told that your love for others should be lesser than the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Zayd ibn Muhammad, Zayd ibn Haritha used to be called Zayd ibn Muhammad, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to hold him very dearly. So Allah Pak said, Muhammad, you only have one heart, so although Zayd was classed as your adopted son, but from now on, Allah gives the other instruction that from now on, relate him, call him to his father, and don't love him as your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have only one heart, and that should be for Allah alone only. So that was the cause of revelation, and this is the indication to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the first instruction. Allah has not kept two hearts for someone in his breast. Someone sent a very nice incident, that in USA, in your university, someone read this ayat that Quran says Allah has not kept two hearts in a man. So the professor said, well, this ayat the verse is wrong, because it implies that only a man does not have two hearts and a woman has two hearts, whereas the woman only has one heart as well. So why is only man mentioned over here and not a woman? So one Muslim student got up and he said, sir, a woman can have two hearts in her when she is pregnant carrying the baby. She's got two hearts.
Oh, wonderful.
And the professor was gobsmacked, dumbfounded, he didn't know what to say. He said, yes, you're right. So that's why Allah said, Ma ja'alallahu li rajulin. Only a man has one heart. Sometimes a woman does have two hearts. So Allah has not given a man two hearts within his chest, in his internal. Jawf means inside in his body. In his internal body, Allah has given man only one heart, not two. So, and the second thing is, وَمَا جَعَلَ أَزْوَاجَكُمْ أَلَّائِي تُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْهُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ. Allah has not made your your wives from whom you do zihar, your real mothers. In the Zamani Jahiliyyat, there was a custom wherein, people used to call their wives, Anti alayya ka zahri ummi. You to me is like the back of my mother. Zahr means back. So just as it is haram for me to touch my mother's back with lust, and desire that you are haram for me as well. And this would be taken as a form of divorce. And that wife would become like his mother, and he would not touch her for the rest of his life. And they would be then separated, and she would have to go her own way. So when Islam came, in the beginning, this was the case. Some people, a Muslim did this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to reveal special ayat for that in the opening verses of Surah al-Mujadala, 28th juz. قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله والله يسمع تحاوركما إن الله سميع عليم سميع بصير والذين يظاهرون من نسائهم الذين يظاهرون منكم من نسائهم ما هن أمهاتهم إن أمهاتهم إلا اللائي ولدنهم وإنهم ليقولون منكرا من القول وزورا وإن الله لعفو غفور. It so happened that Aus ibn As-Samit radiyallahu anhu was with his wife, and something happened to him, and he said, you to me are like my mother. So his wife was scared. He said, you have made me like your mother, so you're going to divorce me, separate me, I have to go my own way now. What did you do? He said, well, I just said it because it's Ramzan and I wanted to stay away from you. But you shouldn't have said that. And he said, what can I do? So she came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Aisha radiallahu anha says, I was in the corner of my house washing some dishes or clothes or something, doing something, and she took permission, entered, and she was talking in one corner with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was murmuring something. I couldn't figure out totally what she was saying, just about catch what she's trying to say, not every word of it. So Khawla bint Hakim, so so she was saying, Ya Rasulullah, my husband, I gave my youth for him, I gave him children, and I looked after him, I looked after his children, now I have reached old age, and he has done this zihar from me, and has made me haram upon him. So, there must be some way out. And Rasulullah said, I'm sorry, I don't know, this is what's been going on, this is what from before is going on, so you are haram on him. He said, no, Ya Rasulullah, there must be some way out. And Rasulullah said, no, I can't figure any way out, I'm sorry. No, there will be some way out. Please do something, please do something. This is mujadala with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Aisha radiyallahu anha says, Alhamdulillah alladhi wasi'a sam'uhu al-aswat. All praise is Allah whose hearing encompasses all voices. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but Allah sent Jibreel down to Rasulullah while she was still sitting there. And Rasulullah was there. And the condition of wahi overcame him. And then after the wahi was finished, he raised his head and he said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. Allah has heard the words of that lady who was arguing with you with regards to her husband and who was pleading to Allah, oh Allah, please find a way for me, Allah, please find a way for me. She was pleading, arguing, pleading. وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعُ تَحَاوُرَكُمَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. Allah was listening to your conversation. Allah is all hearing, all seeing. الَّذِينَ يُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْكُم مِّن نِّسَائِهِمْ مَا هُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِهِمْ. Who say this, that you to me are like my mother, their wives don't become their real mothers. They are not their mothers. مَا هُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِهِمْ إِنْ أُمَّهَاتُهُمْ إِلَّا اللَّائِي وَلَدْنَهُمْ. Their mothers are those who gave birth to them. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَقُولُونَ مُنْكَرًا مِنَ الْقَوْلِ وَزُورًا. These types of sentences are bad, munkar, and zur, lies. So this is a fabrication and it's bad. It should not be uttered. They should not say these types of words. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَعَفُوٌّ غَفُورٌ. Allah is pardoning, forgiving. Allah has forgiven Aus ibn As-Samit radiyallahu anhu because he didn't know the masla. He said it out of ignorance. Now we will provide the solution. Then Allah mentioned the kafara. That if someone does zihar, then he should either free one slave or he should keep continuous 2 months fasting, or he should feed 60 masakin, and then his zihar kafara will be done and he can stay with his wife again and she will remain his wife, and by this kafara they won't be separated. So over here Allah Pak is mentioning that وَمَا جَعَلَ أَزْوَاجَكُمْ اللَّائِي تُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْهُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ. If you say these type of wrong words, then your wives don't become your mothers, they will remain your wives. Allama Maulana Idris Kandalwi or Maulana Muhammad Malik Kandalwi Rahmatullah alayhi says over here that Allah Pak is saying that the thought of the Arabs was wrong, because a mother is she who gives birth to you, and how can your wife become your mother? Your wife didn't give birth to you, so how can she become your mother? And also, a wife is a khadima and mother is makhduma. So how can a khadima become makhduma? And also he writes that it is haram for a person to love his mother the way he loves his wife. If someone was to love his mother in the manner of his wife, then he is a bighairat and bihaya and besharam admi. That he is using that lust of the opposite gender with his mother. He should have some respect for the mother. So these type of words which come out of their lips is munkar and zur, and it's a total lie. They shouldn't be saying these types of words. So this is why Allah said, وَمَا جَعَلَ أَزْوَاجَكُمْ اللَّائِي تُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْهُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ. This was the second instruction. So your wives will remain your wives. And وَمَا جَعَلَ أَدْعِيَاءَكُمْ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. Allah has not made your adopted sons your real sons. A real son is he who was born through your nutfa, your drop of semen. So as someone else's son, you adopt him, how can he become your real son? So adopted sons are not real sons. وَمَا جَعَلَ أَدْعِيَاءَكُمْ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ. This is ذَلِكُمْ قَوْلُكُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ. You say these things with your mouths, with your tongues, and that's it. There is no reality to it. It does not have that effect of the changing of the reality. The reality will not change. You will only have one heart in your body, and your wives will remain your wives. They won't become your mothers, and your adopted sons will remain adopted. They won't become real sons. And these are only sayings with your mouth. And remember, Allahu yaqulul haqqa wa huwa yahdis sabil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always speaks the truth, and it is Allah who guides to the straight path. So stay on the straight path and listen to what Allah says, because whatever Allah says is haqq. And what is that haqq? Ud'uhum li'abaihim. Relate the children, the sons, to their fathers. Huwa aqsatu indallah. This is more just in the sight of your Rabb. The meaning is clear, that relate the adopted sons to their fathers. If you had, adopted a baby, and then when the baby grows up and it reaches maturity and understands everything, then you should one day sit down with the child, with the youngster who is now maybe a teenager, and talk to him and tell him that, we adopted you. We are not your real parents. Your real parents are so and so. So he should be informed and his mind should be clear. So this is, I'm talking about today's society. And we have to remember, in this day and age we have the surnames of the parents. So don't give your surname to that child whom you have adopted. Keep his surname, whatever he is, and relate him to his father, not to yourself. This is the instruction. This is why I sometimes say there should be a difference between adopting and fostering. Fostering is when you foster a child, look after him, and then you give the child back to the original parents. Yes. This is sometimes you foster a yatim. For example, we have one, Harisab, who did not have any children, but there was another family and they had 7 daughters. But since they were very close, he fostered one of the daughters, and he brought up the daughter like his own daughter, and when she grew up he married her as well. And the daughter used to treat them like their real parents. But she knew that my real parents are them, and these are my foster parents. They looked after me. They were so nice and kind to me. So she treated them like real parents. So there is no harm in this when the child knows who the parents are and he is related to the real parents. So fostering should be okay. But adopting by giving him your name and hiding the secret from him, because the baby doesn't know, when he or she grows up and she thinks that you are the real parents, and then sometimes something happens, somebody tells them, and they get a shock of their life, and then they start screaming. It so happened in Black when there was this girl whose mother passed away in some accident or something. So the grandmother brought her up, And then one day when she was a bit, grown up, maybe 10, 12, 13 years old, she went to a shop to buy sweets. And, the shopkeeper told her that, your mother, she know your real mother, she's your grandmother, your mother passed away in accident. And she just started screaming and she fainted and she dropped all the sweets and everything there. And she came back home crying, and she was screaming, you hid the truth from me, you never told me the truth. So she was overcome by a shock. So, this type of thing should not happen. So reality should be disclosed to the child. So there should be a difference between adoption and fostering. Fostering is okay, but adopting should be, we should be careful. Why Allah is saying this over here, we will understand, go into deep story later on. It's about Zayd ibn Harisa radiallahu anhu. Zayd ibn Harisa radiallahu anhu was a young boy of maybe 10, 12 years old. And there was an attack or a night ambush in their locality. Many people were killed and many were captured. So Zayd, the young boy, was also taken into captivity, and the captors took him away because they had some grudge among the tribes, and this is why they did this. Now, when the dust settled down, people are looking for their relatives. Zayd's father could not find Zayd, and he was extremely grieved. Now he is thinking about Zayd. Days are passing by. I don't know where Zayd is. What's happened to him? بقيت على زيد ولم أدري ما فعل أحي فيرجى أم أتى دونه الأجل. I'm always crying upon Zayd. I don't know what's happened to him. If he is still alive or his death has approached him, they've killed him. I don't know what happened to him. Time passes by, many days, weeks, months, years. Year passes. Then one day somebody tells him that, I went for Hajj Mawsim, and I saw your son Zayd over there. And his father said, you saw my son Zayd? He said, yes, I saw your son Zayd. Okay. Then his father took some money for ransom with his uncle, and they both came to Makkah Mukarramah. Now what happened over here was that those captors went and sold Zayd in a market after making him a slave. Hazrat Khadija radiallahu anha's relative was in the market, and he looked at this young boy and saw that he is very honhar and mashallah, very intelligent. So he bought him as a slave, and he gave it as a gift to Khadija radiallahu anha. And Khadija radiallahu anha gifted Zayd to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was just before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to become prophet. He was not yet a Nabi. He was maybe, before 40 years age. So Zayd used to stay with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and do his khidmat. Rasulullah developed this likeness for Zayd. Zayd liked Rasulullah, Rasulullah liked him, and he was always with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in and out. Now, when the father and the son, the brother, they both come to Makkah Mukarramah and they inquire about Zayd, they eventually end up with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they said that, we have heard that our son Zayd is with you. We have brought some ransom money. If you can please, give him us whatever ransom you want, we will pay and free him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Zayd, and Zayd came. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do you know these two men? And I said, yes, this is my father, this is my uncle. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, they have come to take you, and you are at liberty. If you want to go, you can go for free. I don't want any money. I'm not a dunyadar person. I'll let you go with him without money, without ransom. So the father and the uncle were really happy, and we don't have to pay anything and we can take him for free. So they looked at Zayd. Zayd, come on, you're coming with us now. So Zayd said, no, I have seen something from this man which makes me sacrifice my life for him. I'm going to stay with him for the rest of my life. I'm not going to go away from here. And they said, you are preferring captivity and slavery over freedom. You come with us, you will be free, and here you will be slave. So you want to stay slave for the rest of your life? And he said, yes, I want to stay the slave of this man. I want to stay with him for the rest of my life. Now, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard this answer, his heart was softened. He had tears in his eyes. And he said, oh, he took Zayd and his father and uncle, and they both came to Ka'batullah Sharif, wherein there were a lot of people sitting around Kaaba. And he said, people, please listen carefully. I have adopted Zayd from today. As from now, he is my son, and everybody should relate him to me and call him Zayd ibn Muhammad. So he is my son now, I have adopted him. So Zayd's father, Haritha, and his uncle were happy, and they embraced Zayd, and they said, okay, if you are happy to stay here, no problem, stay. So they go happily, and Zayd lives. And now he is called Zayd ibn Muhammad, Zayd ibn Muhammad. Everybody treats him like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's son. He is the son of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is blessed with prophethood. Among the first persons to embrace Islam is Zayd ibn Haritha. The first free male to embrace Islam is Abu Bakr Siddiq. The first free female to embrace Islam is Khadijatul Kubra radiyallahu anha. And the first youngster to embrace Islam is Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the first slave to embrace Islam, or freed slave to embrace Islam, is Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu anhu. So he is one of the first to embrace Islam, and then he stays with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 13 years in Medina Munawwara, and then he migrates with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's in Makkah Mukarramah 13 years, and then he migrates with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam later on to Medina Munawwara, and in Medina Munawwara he is still called Zayd ibn Muhammad, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had married him in Makkah Mukarramah when he had grown up to Umm Ayman. And Umm Ayman was from Habasha. So from Umm Ayman and Zayd, they had a son named Usama ibn Zayd. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to love Zayd, and he used to love his son Usama. And because he had great love for Umm Ayman as well. Umm Ayman was Rasulullah's mother after his mother had passed away. She had nursed and took care of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Usama was the son of Zayd ibn Haritha and Ayman. Later on, Ayman was separated from Zayd after Hijrat. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Zayd with his Phupizad, Behem, his cousin, Hazrat Zainab bint Jahsh radiyallahu anha, who was the daughter of Umaymah bint Abdul Muttalib. So Rasulullah had married Zayd with Zainab, and they remained together for some time. Then they also separated. Then Rasulullah was ordered to marry Zainab. Now the real son, the adopted son, was taken as real son by the people of Jahiliyyah. So Zayd was like a real son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now his wife, the Jahiliyyah people say you can't marry the wife of your adopted son either, like you can't marry the wife of your real son. So this rasam and this rivaj from Jahiliyyah, Allah wanted to break it and put an end to it. So Allah told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to marry Zainab, who was his cousin, who was allowed, but she was also the divorced of his adopted son Zayd ibn Muhammad, who was named Zayd ibn Muhammad. But when this ayat was revealed, ud'uhum li abaihim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came into the masjid and he said, by Allah Pak has given this instruction, from now on don't call him Zayd ibn Muhammad, call him Zayd ibn Haritha, because his real father is Haritha, so relate him to his father. Then again he was called Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu anhu. Zayd ibn Haritha radiyallahu anhu stayed with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in the year 8 after Hijrah, during the battle of Mu'tah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent an army to confront the Romans, he made Zayd ibn Haritha the Amir of the army. And he said, if Zayd is martyred, then then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib is the Amir. And if Ja'far is Shaheed, then Abdullah ibn Rawaha is the Amir. And if Abdullah ibn Rawaha also becomes Shaheed, then the Muslims can choose for themselves. One Jew was listening to this conversation and he said, Ye teen to gaye. He said, because when the previous prophets used to say such sentences, then that would mean that this is going to happen. So I can say with confidence that Muhammad is a prophet. He didn't believe in him. He was a Jew. He remained a Jew. But he said, Muhammad, we know he is a prophet. And when he said this, that if Zayd is Shaheed, That means he's going to become Shaheed. Then Ja'far, if Ja'far is Shaheed, then Abdullah Ja'far is going to become Shaheed. Then Abdullah ibn Rawah is going to become Shaheed as well. And that's what happened. The battle took place. First Zayd became Shaheed, then Ja'far became Shaheed. Ja'far took the flag and banner, and his arm was cut off. He took it with his other hand, and that was also cut off. And he, tied it to his body, and then he was killed. And then Abdullah ibn Rawaha took the banner, and he kept on fighting. He was also killed. Then Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu took it. And Allah saved the Muslim army and gave victory upon the hands of Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu. So this is how Zayd ibn Harisa radiallahu anhu was martyred in the battle of Muta. These ayat are regarding Zayd ibn Harisa, that ud'uhum li abaihim huwa aqsatu indallah. So from now on, relate him to his father. And Ajib, we will read in the ayat coming that Zayd ibn Harisa is the only Sahabi to be mentioned in the Quran. In the Quran, there is no name of any Sahabi, Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, Ali. Only فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا. So فَلَمَّا قَضَى Zayd ibn Harisa. He is the only one mentioned in the Quran. So Zayd ibn Harisa was a very beloved young man of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah used to hold him very dearly. This is why maybe Allah said, "Ma ja'alallahu li rajulin min qalbayni fi jawfi." Don't love Zayd that much. Your love should be for Allah. And Allah said, "Ud'uhum li abaihim." Relate him to his father. This is who aqsatu indallah. Then Allah gave instruction moving on. فَإِن لَمْ تَعْلَمُوا آبَاءَهُمْ فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ وَمَوَالِيكُمْ. Sometimes you might not know their parents. Then Allah said, فَإِخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ. Then they will be your brothers in religion, and وَمَوَالِيكُمْ, and they will be your friends. If there is a case, a child is found in the middle of the road, nobody knows where it came from. Sometimes such cases happen. These days people leave children in carrier bag near dustbins, garbage. And then the child is taken to hospital. He looks like an Asian or so and so. We don't know who the parents are. And they look, but they can't find out, and the child is given for adoption. So if you don't know who the father is, then keep them as your religious brothers. And وَمَوَالِيكُمْ, friends. Mawali is plural of Mawla, and Mawla has more than 17 meanings in Arabic. And one of the meanings is master, leader, Sayyid, and also slave, freed slave. Also it means a helper, a cousin, a friend. So over here, Mawla means friend. So, فَيْخْوَانُكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ وَمَوَالِيكُمْ. They will be your brothers and your friends. Keep them as your friends, keep them as your brothers, but don't keep them as your sons and your children. They should know that what the reality is. Don't hide the reality from them. وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ فِي مَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ. If some mistake is made sometime, then there is no harm in them. Meaning sometimes by mistake you relate them to someone other than their father, then mistake is mistake. Allah doesn't hold to account for mistake. وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. Whatever you do deliberately, then whatever your hearts commit deliberately, then that is what Allah holds you to account for. And وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Allah is Ghafurur Rahim. So keep that in mind. Upon this, these ayat come to a close. And another masla comes over here. This is from someone taking some child, adopting him and saying he is my son. On the reverse side, a child, a son, taking someone else as his father. Now in the Jahiliyyat, sometimes they used to do this. A child is maybe, good looking, and he is strong and brave, and his father is not that good looking, not that well off, and so he doesn't want to relate himself to his father, so he would relate himself to someone else who is from a noble lineage, and noble tribe and Qabila and Khandan, royal family, elite, aristocrat, and he would say, I am the son of so and so. Because at that time, zina used to take place as well. So he would say, my mother has slept with so and so, so I am his son. So this was a bimari among the sickness among the people of Jahiliyyah. Rasulullah put an end to this as well. He said, Man idda'a ila ghayri abihi awin tama ila ghayri mawalihi. فَعَلَيْهِ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالنَّاسِ أَجْمَعِينَ. Or he said in another place, فَالْجَنَّةُ عَلَيْهِ حَرَامٌ. That whosoever relates himself to anyone other than his father, and for some reason or whatever, like sometimes it so happens, Mufti Mahmud Sahab ka ek latifa yaad aa gaya. Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahab Al-Gangohi Rahmatullah alayhi ke malfuzat mein, that this young man was brought up by his parents so nicely. They spent money on him. They sold their land to educate him. He graduated, and then he came back from the city to the village, and they had a function, a party. He invited his friends from the city, so they all came, and in that big marquee, khayma, people were sitting and they're talking, and when his friends arrived, he introduces everyone. Oh, this is our, village's Sarpanch Sahab, and this is so and so, and this is Imam Sahab. And his friends come upon his father. And his father was a villager, Bedouin, didn't have proper topi, libas is not proper as well, and he's an elderly person. So he didn't want, he felt it, sheepish, saying, this is my father. Hatak mahsus hui, कि इनको मैं अपना अब्बा कहूँ. So he said, ये मेरे वालिद के दोस्त हैं. ये मेरे वालिद के दोस्त हैं. This is my father's friend. And his father said, नहीं, मैं इनके वालिद का दोस्त नहीं, मैं इनकी वालिदा का दोस्त हूँ. I am not his walid's friend, I am his walida's friend. शर्म नहीं आती नाले. So sometimes they feel bad in relating themselves to their fathers for some reason. So this type of behavior is wrong. You can't say this is not my father is someone else. Allah said, "Ud'uuhum li'abaihim." Huwa aqsatu inda Allah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man idda'a ila ghayri abihi." So we have to keep that in mind. Always call your father, respect your father. In another place he said, فَهُوَ كُفْرٌ. Relating yourself to another person is kufr. And the meaning of that is kufran ni'mat. Ni'mati ubuwat. He's your father, he brought you up, he spent his money on you. You should do his shukr. And you are doing his nashukri, and you are relating yourself to someone else. For 20, 25 years, he looked after you, educated you, spent his money upon you, and now you are grown up, you are graduate, you are doctor, you are engineer, you are barrister, solicitor, lawyer, and you think you belittle your own father and you say, he's not my father, it's someone else. So what type of behavior is this? No, you can't do that. So this is something we need to keep in mind. One more mas'ala to keep in mind. Some people today say that when a woman gets married, she should not take the surname of the husband, she should keep the surname of her father and relate herself to the father. Whereas in our custom, what happens is the woman after marriage gets the surname of the husband. So some people, non-muqallids, they use this hadith, that you have to relate yourself to your father. However, both cases are different. After marriage, a woman is allowed to relate herself to her husband. And this is in the Quran and the Hadith. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا امْرَأَةَ نُوحٍ وَامْرَأَةَ لُوطٍ. To Imra'ata Nuh, Imra'ata Lut, Imra'ata Fir'aun, this is relation to their husbands. Zawja of Nuh, Zawja of Lut. So when a woman says, this is my Zawj, and she relates herself to the Zawj, there is no harm in there. Taking up the surname of the husband, there is no harm. Nobody in the society thinks that this person is her father. Everybody knows that's her husband. So she's not saying this is my father, she's saying this is my husband, but because of this nature of the society we live in, they have to use the same surname for bank accounts, for passports, for benefits, for Hajj Umrah. So if you have same surname, you want to go for visa, and you have same surname, it's easy for you, bank account easier for you, inheritance, if one dies, then the other person automatically inherits. So the nature of the society we live in demands that a woman, uses the surname of her husband. There is no harm in there. Shariat allows it. She doesn't have to keep her father's surname and relate herself to the, say her father's surname. No, everybody knows that they are her parents, and she regularly visits them. The whole society knows that this man is her husband, and not the father. So there is no harm in there. Some people come up with these small masalas and boggle up the minds of people on the internet. They are not alims, they are half-baked, so-called man-made, homemade, internet-made scholars, and they start giving fatwas, and then they make fatwas should be taken from ulama, from scholars, from muftiyan kiram. So when muftis say there is no harm in there, then these half-baked so-called scholars should not go out there giving fatwas and giving such rulings. So there is no harm in there, ladies. Sometimes I think why they do this, because those ghair muqallids and those people who say this, there is the divorce ratio in them is too high, because they go into polygamy and marry multiple women. And in Birmingham, these people, they have 3-4 wives all the time, and they divorce one and get another one, and you marry, I'm divorcing this one, you marry him, you divorce yours, and I'll marry yours. So there is so much these types of habits going on. There are some people over there who have so many children, they don't know the names of all their children from different wives. So they say, because they want to keep changing, they say you should keep your husband's name, you should keep your father's surname, and then no matter how many times you get divorced and marry and remarry, there's no problem in there. Maybe this is the reason why they bring this masla up, and they say that you should relate to your father only and not to your husband. Alhamdulillah, in our society, we behave in such a manner that a woman is married to someone, she stays with him for the her whole life. So there is no need to change, to keep relating to her father. She can relate to her husband and take his surname and relate to him. This is my husband, I am married to him, and we are together. There is no harm in there. Open your account, have your house on both parties' names, and life is easier for you. So to make life easy for us, there is no harm in changing the name from the father's surname to the husband's surname. It's okay, it's allowed. It doesn't come under this hadith of relating yourself to someone else, as I explained in the hadith with the Latifa of Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi, which makes everything very clear. Anyway, inshallah, after an-nabiyyu awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim, we will read later on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not the father of anyone among you, any male among you. He is not the father of a man among you. Ma ja'ala Allahu li rajulin, another place, ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadin min rijalikum. So no one is his nasabi son, grown up son. He did have daughters, and he did have sons who died in their infancy, but he did not have any grown up man as his son, like Zayd ibn Haritha. So he may not have any nasabi sons, but he does have many spiritual sons. So an-nabiyyu awla bil mu'minin, Nabi is more closer to the believers than themselves. So spiritually, ruhani etibar se, he is the father of his whole nation. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم, when he becomes the father of the whole ummah, then وأزواجه أمهاتهم, his wives become their mothers. So community should treat the Nabi like a father figure, and his wives like their mothers. وأزواجه أمهاتهم. So we have to respect the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Azwaj Mutahharat. النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم. Maulana Idris Khandalvi Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi mentions here very nicely, Awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim. Nabi is more close and more qareeb and more deserved of the mu'mineen than themselves, because our nafs instructs us to do good as well but bad as well. Nafs has both sides. It has khair and shar, but Nabi only instructs us with khair. He only tells us to do good. He opens the good and the hidayat and the good path before us. That is why he is more closer to us than our own nafs and our own egos. उनके नुफूस शर और फसाद का भी हुक्म देते हैं, खैर और सलाह से रोकते हैं. अल्लाह का नबी हर खैर का हुक्म देता है, हर शर से मना करता है. जैसे मुशफिक बाप नादान बच्चे के साथ मुआमला करता है. बच्चा खुद अपना इतना खैरखा नहीं जितना कि बाप उसका खैरखा होता है. किसी के लिए ये जायज़ नहीं कि वो अपने आप को आग में डाल दे, लेकिन अगर नबी हुक्म दे तो आग में कूदना भी फ़र्ज हो जाएगा. आगे बाप जिस्मानी हयात का सबब है और नबी ईमानी और रूहानी हयात का सबब है. बाप brought us into this life with our body, but Nabi breathes this ruh and spirit in ourselves, and man is name of the ruh and the soul, not the body. Body is like a covering, and the real man is the soul. This is why this soul was in alami arwah, and this soul came into a body in the mother's womb, and it came into another body, into a body in over here, and then when we die, the soul is taken out and the body is buried in the soil. And when we get up on Qiyamah, the soul will be breathed into a body, and then we will be presented to Allah. So the real man is the soul. The real human being is the soul. Body is just a covering. So because of our parents, our body came over here, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam breathed life and soul into us with Quran, with Hidayat, with guidance. And we are Muslims, alhamdulillah. We pray 5 times a day. We read the Quran. This is what brings ruhaniyat within us. This is why Allah said Quran is ruh. وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِّنْ أَمْرِنَا. We have inspired a ruh and soul to you from our amr. So, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is more qareeb, more close, and more deserving of us than our own selves. And his mothers are, his wives are their mothers. Meaning not real mothers, like we talked about, مَا جَعَلَ أَزْوَاجَكُمُ اللَّهِ تُظَاهِرُونَ مِنْهُنَّ أُمَّهَاتِكُم. But the wives of the Prophet are mothers in regard to ruhaniyat, spiritual mothers, spiritual mothers. This is why this ayat does not mean that ummah does not have to do, they don't have to do parda from them. No, they still have to observe parda. Because they're not like real mothers from whom we don't do parda. They are our mothers, but ruhani and spiritual mothers. So we have to respect them, treat them, behave with them like our real mothers, and treat them nicely, kindly, gently, look after them, do whatever we can for them. And at this moment, we can do isal thawab for them, sadaqah on behalf of them. So we should do sadaqah on behalf of Aisha radiallahu anha, Hafsa radiallahu anha, Khadija radiallahu anha. I was with Shaykh Yunus Sahab, and in Medina Munawwara I said, Hazrat, आज Saturday है, shall we go to Masjid Quba, pray 2 rakat namaz there? Shaykh said, chalo. And we went Masjid Quba. When we went there, I said, Shaykh, Ghazwa Uhud, Shuhada Uhud par bhi hazri de de. Shaykh ne farmaya, Shaykh prayed a few rakats, 2, 4, 6 rakats, and then we said, can we go to Shuhada Uhud as well? And he said, okay, we'll go Shuhada Uhud as well. And then he said something really nice. He said, 2 जगहों पर सलाम पढ़ने से हुजूर की रूह बहुत खुश होती है. एक अमीर हमजा की कब्र पर और दूसरे हज़रत खदीजा के मज़ार पर. He said, if you go to pay respect and salam to 2 places, Rasulullah gets really happy. One is Hazrat Amir Hamza, Hazrat Hamza Sayyidu Shuhada's grave in Shuhada Uhud, and one is Hazrat Khadija's grave in Makkah Mukarramah. So, Hazrat Khadija is our mother. So when we go to Makkah Mukarramah, we say salam in Jannatul Ma'la, we read some Quran and do some Isal Sawab for Khadija radiallahu anha. So they are like our mothers, and we have to treat them like our mothers. This is Azwajuhu Ummahatuhum. The wives of Nabi are like their mothers. Now, this being motherhood is spiritual. Some Shias disrespect Ummahatul Mu'mineen. Hazrat Aisha, Hazrat Hafsa, and astaghfirullah, they say real bad words, and Shiism is spreading very fast, very fast, at an alarming speed. May Allah protect the Ummah from the Shias and Rafzis. Maulana Sher Ali Haidari rahmatullahi alayh, mentions in one of his clips that one Shia Rafzi phoned me, and he said to me that, the Ummahatul Mu'mineen are the mothers of the believers, right? And Maulana Sahib said, yes. He said, well, what about Abu Bakr? Is Aisha his mother as well? He meant to say, if she is Abu Bakr's daughter, then she can't be his mother. And if she is not Abu Bakr's mother, then Abu Bakr is not a believer. Because Ummahatul Mu'mineen, Ummul Mu'mineen. So Na'uzubillah, Abu Bakr is a kafir. This is where he was trying to take Maulana Sher Ali Haidari rahmatullah alayh. So Maulana Sahib said, 1 minute. He said, is this the case with Aisha only or with other Ummahatul Mu'mineen as well? Because Rasulullah had total 11 wives, 2 died during his life and 9 were alive at the time of his death. So is it the case with Aisha only or is it the case with others as well? And he said, of course with others as well. Then what will you say with regards to Hazrat Khadija and Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu? Is Khadija mother of Ali radiallahu anhu? If she is mother of Ali radiallahu anhu, then she is also the mother of Fatima radiallahu anha, and she is his mother-in-law as well. But if she is not his real mother, then Ali is not a believer. He won't be a mu'min because she won't be his ummul mu'mineen. What will you say regarding that? And he had nothing to say. So, the reality is that they are ummul mu'mineen. Being ummul mu'mineen is only spiritual sense. It's not a nasabi sense. It's not from the side of nasab. So Aisha radiallahu anha is the daughter of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anha with regards to lineage and nasab, but she is also the mother of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu spiritually, ruhani, and with regards to respect. So because she is the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they all used to treat Ummahatul Mu'mineen as their mothers. Sometimes they used to come to ask Masla. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu comes. And he says, Ummul Mu'mineen, I want to ask a masla, but I feel shy. And she said, don't feel shy. You can ask me any masla which you can ask your real mother as well. If you can ask that masla to your real mother, you can ask me as well. Because فَإِنَّمَا أَنَا أُمُّكِ, I am your mother. And when Sahabas used to address Ummahatul Mu'mineen, Aisha radiallahu anha, Hafsa, even though Aisha was very young in comparison to their age, but they would say, Ya Ummah, dear mother, oh my mother. Oh my mother, can you please tell me what is this masala with regards to this? So they used to treat them like real mothers with regards to respect. From behind hijab, Aisha radiallahu anha never took off her hijab in front of anyone, from behind the curtain and the hijab. The Ummahatul Mu'mineen were very particular about hijab, to the extent that if a young boy, an immature, nabaligh child would do their khidmat, then when he would become mature, put the curtain down, and from that day he would never see their face for the rest of his life. The young man, he comes and he says, Ummul Mu'mineen, namaz has become farz upon me. And she got the indication, and the curtain was dropped, and he said, you have to talk to me from behind curtain from now on. So they observed the hijab from the ummah like any other normal woman, but with regards to respect and spirituality, they were regarded as the mothers of the believers. This is azwajuhu ummahatuhum. And وَأُولُو الْأَرْحَامِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلَى بِبَعْضٍ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُهَاجِرِينَ إِلَّا أَن تَفْعَلُوا إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِكُمْ مَعْرُوفًا. And the close relatives are more closer to one another with regards to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than the mu'mineen and the muhajirin, unless you wish to do a good turn to your friends. This has been documented in the book. Meaning, in the beginning, ulul arham, when the Sahaba came, muhajirin and ansar, Rasulullah used to make brotherhood between the Sahaba. And this brotherhood was so strong that if one was to die, the other would get the miras as well. This was in the beginning. But later on in Surah An-Nisa, the ahkam of miras came. That miras is for zawil furud and asaba, the close relative. So from then on, this instruction came that the miras should be given to the close relatives, not to these between whom brotherhood was made by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, if you give your miras to your relatives, but if you want to do some kindness to these brothers of yours, then you are allowed. You make a will for them, or you say, give my friend so and so much, then this will is allowed, wasiyat is allowed for them, but miras will only be for your relatives, and the furuz, the will furuz, the shares have been allotted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nasiban mafruda, yusikumullahu fi awladikum. This is wawlul arhami ba'duhum awla bi ba'din fi kitabillah. Relations are more closer to one another in the book of Allah, hukm of Allah, more than mu'mineen and muhajirin, unless you want to do some good and show kindness to your friends. That is allowed. This has been noted in the book. وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ مِيثَاقَهُمْ. We'll read from here next week, inshallah, if Allah.